Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're going to focus on the city of Sunnyvale. We're joined by two council candidates, Jim Griffiths and Gustav Larsson. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Well, before we talk about Sunnyvale and the issues of the day and why the heck you'd want to be on the council, let's get to know you a little better. Gustav, resident.
Yeah, I've lived in Sunnyvale for 14 years.
Oh.
Originally come from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
Grew up there, came out to the Bay Area to go to Stanford, and then lived in Palo Alto, Mountain View, and now Sunnyvale.
Okay, let's go back a few more years before that. Growing up, did you have any interest in becoming an elected official in a large city like Sunnyvale?
Absolutely not. I was very much into my computers. The Apple II Plus was out at that time. I was learning to program. And it actually wasn't until about 6 or 7 years ago that I even started to think that I might one day be involved in politics.
Oh, wow.
So this is a very new development for me.
Oh, okay. Jim, what about you? You've been here a little longer, a little shorter?
Yes, I'm a Bay Area native. I was born and raised in Pleasanton. Went to UC Berkeley to get my degree in math applied to computer science, and then I moved into the high-tech area in Sunnyvale right after that. I've been here 23 years now.
So what do you guys do when the big game comes about? You don't have to answer that now.
We haven't talked about that.
Okay.
Lately, basically, I just break down in tears.
I see your point. Did you have any thoughts of becoming an elected official?
No, my father was a physicist for Lawrence Livermore Laboratory.
Oh.
I always thought I was going to be a scientist of some sort. When I was a freshman in high school, I found the TRS-80 Model 1 computer, and it was all over after that. So I expected I was going to be software and math, and it sort of developed about 10 years ago. Well,
You both are engineers, so you have sort of stayed in that area for your day jobs at least. So what made you want to run for city council? I know you've been a member of the planning commission and maybe had other levels of service to the city.
Yeah, so backing up even before the planning commission, I first got involved when there was an issue in my neighborhood and a medical clinic was expanding. We were concerned about traffic and parking and privacy. And so we had to come up to speed very, very quickly. And that's when I really got to see how much of a difference each individual person can make. And I think that really gave me a taste of how important it is for just ordinary residents to become part of the process and shape the direction of the city and have their voice heard. So that led to me getting on the Planning Commission, which really opened my eyes even more to what the possibilities are and what the challenges are in the city.
So you've been on the Planning Commission, you've served as chair,
Yes.
Been responsible for maintaining order while you look at these thoughtful issues?
Yes. Yes, and we have a very good planning commission. It's a very collegial atmosphere. We certainly don't agree on every issue, and we shouldn't, but we can always have very thoughtful debates, focus on the issues.
Got it.
Yeah.
Jim, you weren't on the Planning Commission, as I understand
Nope.
it, but you were involved in an important ballot measure.
Right. I actually got my start in city government back in about 2004. I applied for the Board of Library Trustees. I'd been involved in library since 7th grade. Prop 13 hit and it closed down my library, and I didn't like that very much. So as soon as it reopened, I started volunteering, and I was into libraries ever since then.
Really?
I was looking for some way to give back, and I found the Board of Library Trustees in 2004. That led to the effort to try and get our library upgraded, which was the ballot measure in 2007. I was chair of the library board then, so I ended up being the champion of that measure. It didn't get the 2/3 it needed. It only got 59%, so we're still trying to solve our libraries, but that led into the city council. As chair of the library board, I was responsible for going before council on all of these issues, and I saw everything that we were dealing with: public safety, parks, roads, sewers, and you get to understand that city government is the most hands-on place to have a difference in people's lives, and it's the most important level of government to most people. And that's what got me interested in serving on the city council.
How are the libraries doing now?
It's interesting. We are as successful as our facilities allow us to be. We have the highest hourly circulation rate of any library in the state of California.
Wow.
In fact, 50% higher than the next highest, which is, I believe, the city of Santa Clara. But we have the smallest per capita collection. We have the smallest per capita space. Ours is, facility-wise, probably the worst library in the county, unfortunately. And we need to find some ways to fix that. We're looking at creating a branch library in the northern part of Sunnyvale, Lakewood Village. That will go a long way toward making things better.
I know other communities have had ballot measures turning out with a higher level of success. You'd think 59% would mean something, but speaking of Prop 13,
yes.
I guess not. And I know the county has consistently looked to go to voters to get support for the county's system.
They have a Measure A in front of them right now in order to pass I believe it's a parcel tax to pay for library services. I support it, even though Sunnyvale is not a member of the county system. Libraries are key to having a vibrant community. We absolutely should be supporting library services and making sure that the services we provide are sufficient to meet the needs of our residents.
So back to the Planning Commission. You've been on the Planning Commission. You've seen the issues that have come before you, city staff, that have been brought by other interests. You've seen residents say no. In spite of all that, you still want to be on the council.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of important work and a lot of opportunities that we have going forward as we're coming out of the recession in actually a very strong position. And the technology sector continues to grow. I think that opens up a lot of doors for really improving the entire community, and I want to be part of that.
So what do you mean the technology sector is growing? How does that specifically impact Sunnyvale?
Well, Lockheed used to be a very big employer in Sunnyvale, and it's become much, much smaller over the years, and that left a gap for a while. And now as internet companies have come in and medical companies have come in, a whole variety of high-tech companies have filled that space and diversified our local economy, created a lot of jobs, and I think with the whole internet boom, we're riding that wave. We're well positioned to keep going forward with that.
Well, that leads to another issue, which is affordable housing. So what are you on the council looking to do, and what have you seen as a planning commissioner there that's shown leadership that would make you a great council member, given the fact that the companies are here, people want to locate here, they have a few bucks in their pocket, and others feel the pressure?
Well, it's very challenging to build affordable housing projects. We just this spring approved the first project in 7 years at the Sunnyvale Armory site. And one of the challenges is actually acquiring land to do the projects. The funding is just so complex for the affordable housing developers that they can't move fast enough to buy parcels of land. So I think the city can actually help out with that by acquiring parcels that then can get developed in the future. Use housing funds to acquire the parcels and then either resell them or lease them, but facilitate that process. Is
there that much land left? I know you have a big golf course, but yes. I don't think you're going to tread on that one.
It's definitely a problem, and the Armory site that we developed was a wonderful opportunity. We partnered with Mid-Penn in order to get that together. It was an incredible job getting it all done. Affordable housing is absolutely a challenge in this area. If you talk to any of the high-tech employers, they'll tell you affordable housing is their #1 concern, and it's the #1 reason why they would leave to go to another area. So that puts a lot of pressure on us to make sure that we're doing what we can. We're looking at it in a couple of different ways. The first of which is we're looking at a nexus study and mitigation fee, the same thing that Mountain View recently passed. That has a real opportunity to fund some of the projects that we need. Gustav's absolutely right that the cost of land is the real challenge in this. Another thing that I'm working on is there is a countywide committee that is trying to form a joint powers authority across the entire county. So then rather than all these individual cities trying to take this little bit of money and do their little bit of thing wherever they are, we try and leverage everybody into one area, and we can say, okay, now we can fund this big project over here or over there, and then possibly have much more bang for the buck out of the money that we get.
So can you do all that and still preserve Olson's orchards, cherry orchards?
I don't think that we're looking to change the orchard into anything else. That's a really important part of our heritage. But there are a number of sites that are either vacant or perhaps industrial sites that really don't work so well anymore for modern office space or modern manufacturing. And those would be prime sites to convert, especially if they're near transit, near Caltrain, near major bus lines.
Yeah, that's absolutely what we're doing. There are these little pockets here and there, and in a lot of the cases, they are pockets of industrial space that's surrounded by residential anyway. And the residential occupants there don't want the industrial right next to them. So we've had some conversion areas near where I live in the north, and in a couple of spots on the east where it's just to the benefit of the community to change it to housing, because the industrial is not really contributing much to the economic side of the city, but the downside from the negative impacts of being right next to industrial are causing people to say, you know, let's go ahead and do that. Those are where we've had the most opportunities beyond the Armory.
So what happened to the facilities, the services that were provided by the Armory?
Well, the Armory was part of a massive project that we did that was tied in with Onizuka Air Force Base. We've been looking for a long time for a good reuse for Onizuka Air Force Base. And we, you know, the number one item that we'd settled on, which nobody liked, was converting it to an auto mall. And everybody sort of said, why are we looking at that? And our city manager came up with the idea of creating a satellite campus for Foothill De Anza on it. But in order to do that, there were certain organizations that had first claim on the land. Veterans Administration wanted to put an R&D facility there, and Mid-Penn and other housing providers wanted to put it there too. But Onizuka is badly positioned for housing. So we are keeping the Veterans Administration there, but we transferred the Mid-Penn claim to the Armory site. And that freed it up for us to put Foothill De Anza in. So that's how that whole, it was sort of a land swap deal. And the end result was that instead of providing homeless services on the Armory, we're providing homeless housing. Because however much we want to deal to accommodate the homeless, the number one thing we can do is give them homes. So that's what we ended up doing with the Armory site. And it was interesting because I actually worried a whole lot about all these homeless people who will depend on services there. But when we were discussing the issue, we had homeless people showing up to the council saying, yes, I get my services there, but the homes are more important. Please do it.
Great. We're going to take a little break right now. When we come back, lots more to talk about.
Hello, I'm Larry Stone, the Santa Clara County Assessor. Politics, particularly Democratic Party politics, has always been important to me. The office of County Assessor is technically a non-partisan office, but I've always been proud to call myself a Democrat and be involved intimately with the Democratic Party. When I was growing up, my parents taught me to be involved in giving something back to your community, and I've been able to do that through my involvement in the Democratic Party. As assessor, I look at myself as a fiduciary for schools, local government, cities, redevelopment agencies, and I think it's important to let people know that I'm an active Democrat. So if you're interested, please give us a call at 408-445-9500. And thank you very much for watching DTV.
Welcome back to Democratic Television. We're having a very interesting discussion about the city of Sunnyvale, and these two gents want to be on the city council. One of you wants to stay on the city council. You're engaged in an election that will take place in early November.
That's correct, November 5th.
November 5th, okay. So the issue of land use is an important issue. You're a city that has finite space. We've talked about something about development and housing. How do you provide needs for the residents in terms of open space and recreation?
Well, we're always looking to expand our open space, and of course it's very hard to acquire new space. So one of the things that we've done over the last few years is increase the requirement that developers the land they must provide when they build new housing. I believe we've doubled that amount in the times that I've been on the Planning Commission. And developers can either provide land or provide money that we can then go off to improve parks or buy new land.
Again, it's a finite city, so I don't assume you tunnel or...
No, we don't. One of the interesting things about this is the park dedication fee, and it was one of the first votes I cast, was to increase it to the highest level permitted by law. And as Gustav said, we can either ask for money or land. So it turns out that while the city is not particularly good at gathering up land for itself, developers are very good at it. So we can come along and say, well, that's great if you want to go ahead and build those 500 units, but you're going to give us 3 acres worth of land in order to do it. We just opened this, in fact, about 2 weeks ago, a new park, Sweels Park right next to a new housing complex, which was an acre park that the developer donated to us. They gave us the land, they built the park themselves and said, here you go. Next thing you knew, we had a park.
Excellent.
We are opening a second new park, which is Seven Seas Park, a 5.5 acre park on the north side. This is the first time in 20 years we've opened new parks, and we're doing 2 of them. And it all comes from the money that we've gotten with these developer fees. The increase that Gustav was talking about is going to bring us $153 million projected over the next 20 years for new and improved parks. That's a huge amount.
That sure is.
And it's either money or land. So there are going to be some cases where some developers come along and want to do something in an area where there isn't parks, and we outright say the only way we're going to let you do that is if you give us a park. So that's one of the ways we can do it. There are some other opportunities. We own some land that is not particularly useful. We can enter into land swaps where if somebody else has something and they want to build offices or housing on our land, we say, great, give us the parkland over there and we'll do it.
Got it.
It requires more creativity, but at this point, particularly with the park dedication fee increase, we've got the resources to do it.
And I think parks are about more than just pure acreage. Sometimes there's a focus just on that number of acres, but quality is just as important as quantity. And I think there are opportunities to perhaps create smaller but more useful parks through good design, parks that more people actually use. If we have a huge open space and no one uses it, that really doesn't do us a lot of good.
Right, and we're starting a new program actually this year where we have a 20-year plan to go and renovate and redo every single park in Sunnyvale. We start with 2 parks this year, 2 parks next year, and so on. And one of the first ones up is one of our largest parks, Fair Oaks, which has a number of sports fields. But as it grew over time, they were just sort of shoehorned in and done whatever. We're going to redo the entire design and make much more better use of the space. That's exactly what Gustav was talking about in terms of not just new parks, but better parks.
Oh, got it. Another issue that you must hear as you're knocking on doors is the issue of crime. It's everywhere, certainly including Sunnyvale. What ideas do you have, each of you, to stem that tide?
I'll start with that. Crime is absolutely a problem. It's a problem statewide, and it goes back to primarily the fact that the governor's put about 40,000 so-called nonviolent prisoners back on the street. Every city in the Bay Area, every city up and down California is being hit by it, and the end result is we have to staff up. We are actively staffing up now. I think the plans are we're going to add 7 new officers just in the next year. Our chief is coming up with an optimal plan for that. One of the things we did, which I thought was really clever, is we hired a new position, which is a senior crime analyst. And his job is to try and figure out the patterns and timings of the burglaries so that we don't just sort of drive around randomly hoping to find them. We know that in this neighborhood, we need to put 2 extra officers at this time because that's when it gets hit. It isn't just a matter of manpower, although that's an important aspect of it. It's using the manpower well. And we have a new chief who we stole from the city of Fremont, and he's doing a wonderful job at making the best use of our resources.
And Gustav, do you have neighborhood watch programs? And
we do, and actually that's something I'd like to strengthen, because I think being able to have the eyes and ears of the residents out there to augment our officers is very important. We can't have officers everywhere, but if people know what to look for and who to call and what to report, I think that's very, very important. So we can reach out more to neighborhood groups and also help neighborhoods just come together so people know their neighbors better, so they know, oh, that person shouldn't be going into that house. I better call someone about this.
And I've gone to any number of these sessions where the public safety talks about what you can do to prevent crimes, and officers in every city will tell you they can't stop a burglary from happening. They can only respond when it does, and the number one way they catch people is when a neighbor says, you know, that didn't look right. So we need neighborhood watch programs in order to get people calling public safety and saying, this looks wrong to me.
So what's going on with the campaign? There's a number of candidates out there, not just you two. What are people talking about? Are you all talking about the same thing? Are you talking about the budget? How does all that work?
There are a lot of very common issues that everybody wants to talk about. Crime's obviously an issue. The economy's turning around, so whereas when I first ran, everybody was talking about jobs, 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 now they're talking about what do we do with the traffic from the jobs that you went and created. So there are issues like that that are pretty common, but I think there's sort of two philosophies that we're seeing in the campaign. The first of which is that this, and I think it's the position that Gustav and I certainly have, that the city has laid out a good plan. We're moving in the right direction, and we just need to focus on a number of problems that haven't been solved yet. The opposing side seems to focus mostly on what I would charitably describe as regressive policies. We want to roll back to, in the case of my opponent, the way things were in the 50s. And we're a high-tech city, and I don't think that regression is in the best interest of the city.
Yeah, I've also heard people ask me about the downtown, what's happening with the Sunnyvale downtown. We are all eager to see that finished up. And I think the council will have an opportunity to there's a lawsuit that's holding it up right now, part of the town center. And council has an opportunity to actually mediate a solution there and find solution that's in the best interest of the whole city. My opponent has been fairly focused on pension reform, but the current council has actually figured out how to solve that problem. So I think there are other problems that we really need to address and work on.
So maybe some single-shot candidates that are out there not seeing the bigger picture.
That's right.
Are they walking precincts too? Are they trying to talk to people, or do you even see them?
I haven't seen them.
I haven't either, but honestly, I'm focused on my own campaign. They can do whatever they want. I want to get out and talk to people what the issues are and hear what they have to say.
How are you guys being received? Are you getting support from a lot of the players? I know the Democratic Party, South Bay Labor are looking very favorably at your candidacies.
I'm really proud of the endorsements that I have at this point. Anna Eshu, Jerry Hill, Rich Gordon, Paul Fong, 5 of the 7 current council members, just a really broad range of support. And many individual residents in the community have stepped forward and said, this is the kind of candidate that we want to have. We support you.
It's the same. I'm talking with Dawn, Democratic activist for Women Now. The Sierra Club gave me an early endorsement. I was very proud to get the endorsement from Anna Eshu. She is perhaps the elected official I most respect in the world. She does such a good job of focusing on the issues and understanding high tech. Again, Paul Fong. We've had a good working relationship up until the point where he got moved elsewhere. Jerry Hill, I have a very strong working relationship with Rich Gordon. I was proud to be endorsed by him. Any number of commissioners and council members. It's very gratifying when you've served 4 years to have people step up and say, we want you to have 4 more years. And I'm grateful for their support.
That sounds great, and I think you'll be in great position to take up some of the issues. I know the issue of payday loans is a big issue all over, and trying to figure out a way to put some guidelines in place, reduce the number of operations like that, come up with alternatives for people who are in need of instant cash or
absolutely. San Jose went and they did their work on payday loans, and when we saw what they were doing, some of our community members who deal with the most vulnerable in Sunnyvale came to us and said, you need to look at this issue, and they're absolutely right. It's predatory what's happening in a number of cases, and so I proposed the study issue that we are looking at, I believe, in just about a month, that will hopefully put some restrictions and make sure that those who are the most vulnerable get as much protection as we can give them against some pretty obnoxious predatory practices.
They're out there, aren't they?
They are.
What are some other issues that you see coming before you as a council that you hadn't foreseen? The economy is doing better. You're in a position now to not just hold spending. I'm sure you've got to be very responsible with the spending. So in about 30 seconds, Gustav, what are you thinking?
In terms of spending in particular or other issues? in general.
Other issues.
I think development is always coming up. How do we integrate? We need to refresh a number of our properties, have modern facilities to have the amenities and work environments that people want. How do we integrate that with what we already have? How do we protect the existing neighborhoods so that they're not impacted? And how do we put new development in the right place?
So we have about a minute left. If people want to get hold of you to explore your positions on issues or to volunteer for your campaigns, Jim, do you have a website you can share?
Absolutely. It's www.jimforcouncil.com. It's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
That's right. I would be grateful for any help anybody wants to give. It's a big city, and reaching out to 146,000 residents is always a challenge. I definitely need people showing up and saying, you know, this is where Sunnyvale's going, and I think it's a good thing.
Great. And Gustav?
I have a website as well, www.larssonforcouncil.com. Encourage people to check it out. My contact information is there, phone number, address, email address. And we're always looking for more volunteers. I have a good group of volunteers already, very motivated, and we would very much welcome anyone else's help.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your campaign schedule. I know you're probably not going to wear the clothes you're wearing now for long. So thanks again for being here, and thanks for being on Democratic Television.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Sure. Thank you for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, sccdp.org. Help make a difference, and we'll see you on the campaign trail.